While mindlessly scrolling on social media platforms, you would have encountered something called an internet meme. At first glance, modern memes appear to be humorous, ironic, and self-explanatory. But upon consideration, memes contain valuable information about the modern world, ranging from artistic perception to our subjective experience of the world around us. To what extent does the history of internet memes act as symbolic parallels of developments in modern cultural evolution? Do internet memes actually have any deeper meaning beyond short dopamine spikes that destroy our attention spans?
In this episode, we are going to tackle these questions and analyze why and how internet memes are significant and irreplaceable in society, as well as methods of preserving integrity in a concerning trend of meme overload. Before we jump into analysis, it is important to clarify a few terms when studying internet memes. Both the original conception of memes, which dates to Richard Dawkins' 1976 book The Selfish Gene, and the modern dictionary definition include the idea that memes are units of cultural information copied from one person to another by imitation. Stemming from memes is the term memetics, the study of information and culture based on an analogy with Darwinian evolution. Cultural evolution would be variations within a culture emerging due to time and constant transmission. A neologism is any newly formed word, term, or phrase that has gained popular or institutional recognition and is becoming accepted into mainstream language.
Code switching denotes a process of bilingual speakers shifting from one linguistic code, that is to say, one language or dialect, to another, depending on social context or conversational setting.
At the beginning of internet meme culture, the humor behind the memes was still fundamentally rooted in traditional pathways of humor. What are some characteristics that early internet memes share with the humor found centuries ago?
Traditional humor relies a lot on linear progression, and it is something that can still be seen today on the internet. Jokes are almost formulaic in how it is supposed to be delivered. You need a certain setup to create a kind of expectation, like a short narrative or some description that establishes an overarching idea in the audience's minds. But the punchline subverts that expectation, and the audience laughs. Having a formula is basically how traditional jokes operate, and it's a formula that is proven to work. If you tell a verbal joke nowadays, chances are that it still follows the formula of subverting expectations. Early internet memes also operate within this formula. There were memes that involve Success Kid or Bad Luck Brian, and other characters that have a certain archetype and persona in memes. You have the image that sets up the context, and the text that delivers a two-part joke. The top text is the setup, and the bottom text is the punchline. Early memes deliver humor in a similar structure as traditional jokes, and the images simply provide an archetypal background that combines traditional jokes with internet functions.
So you're saying that early internet memes were an extension of traditional humor?
Exactly. Early internet memes are oftentimes jokes that simply involve the internet. Memes still reference real-life events that everyone relates to, like work or school. This was what made memes accessible to a broader audience. They operate on a familiar comedic formula and deliver something that people expect from a joke. But I'm curious about your opinion. What made these memes innovative?
For me, it's democratic meaning-making. With the internet, suddenly anyone can create humor. Traditionally, if you want your humor to be heard by millions of people, you would have to be a professional in the supposed humor industry, such as a comedian or a cartoon artist. Memes democratize the creation of humor by removing skill barriers and establishing free platforms where almost anyone can share their humor with the world. Even though the formula was traditional, its accessibility and freedom of creation is revolutionary. A joke that you wrote can potentially reach millions of views within a week, and there are countless people creating on this equal platform. As such, the internet community began evolving its humor faster than any human cultural phenomenon in history. Now, if memes were innovative in its accessibility, when do you think internet memes began to fully deviate from traditional understandings of humor?
I think it all began in the early 2010s, when people started experimenting with features of the internet that are not accessible elsewhere in culture. An extremely interesting example for me is deep fried memes, which are memes that feature extreme visual distortion. Deep fried memes are interesting because they represent a humor that is the exact opposite of traditional humor. When you take a mediocre meme and blast it with compression, hypersaturation, and distortion, the humor becomes embodied in the image itself. These visual features have a certain jolting effect on the viewer, and your attention naturally jumps to the distorted image. Even though narratives are still somewhat present, the meaning behind the humor is transferred from language to images. This is perhaps the advantage of using the internet. Only digital technology is able to create such images, and the internet allows for the efficient spread of images. Chateau, a communications professor at Tilburg University, differentiates between poor images and purposely poor images, stating that poor images are not valorized because they do not display any sign that will allow us to interpret them as an image, therefore not entering into our interpretive horizon. The purposefully poor image, however, due to its role in the digital cultural economy, does present as an active object within our horizon of expectation and interpretation. What she is saying is that internet memes have developed a unique literacy, where we can read degradation like a new language. The medium of humor becomes inseparable from its delivery. You cannot translate the deep-fried meme into a verbal joke, nor can you truly explain the humor with a language. The humor exists only in a specific digital format. I believe that the exclusively internet-based quality of memes is a turning point in meme history, where it truly became its own genre of humor rather than just the internet manifestation of jokes. How do you think this all plays out on the timeline?
After reaching their peak popularity, these memes declined sharply in their reproduction. Like I said, anyone can make viral memes. In this case, new memes are being produced every day, and it is only a matter of time before some other meme aesthetic replaces these deep-fried memes as the staples of meme making. A few years later, it was quite difficult to find meme creators specifically focused on making deep-fried memes. Something that relies on hyper-distortion is bound to be relatively short-lived. Deep-fried memes ask the question, how far can this go? And they seemingly answer their own question. Distortion can only get you so far in terms of humor, and sometimes hypersaturation can have negative side effects in terms of broad visual appeal. This begs the question, what are some other ideas worth experimenting on?
Well, if experimenting on new digital technologies was a wide trend, there were people who instead dug into the past. Creators began to look at art and culture in the past before the internet existed, in search of memeable material. Retrospective memes rely on cultural references of the past to achieve a certain humorous effect. A notable example of this is the Big Chungus meme that achieved viral status in 2018. This meme came from an episode of the classic cartoon series Looney Tunes, and it features Bugs Bunny imitating Elmer Fudd in a prank. What is notable about this meme is that the episode was released in 1941, well over half a century ago. Creators were finding cultural artifacts of the past and re-implementing them for modern situations. On a deeper level, this meme shows the power of recontextualization. In its original context, the image is only a second-long frame in a relatively insignificant cartoon episode. However, in internet meme culture, creators isolate this image outside of its context and produce something absurd. Retrospective memes like Big Chungus gained their potential because of the internet's power of taking something outside of its context and placing it in entirely new situations. This power of recontextualization makes time go in a non-linear fashion, where culture created in 1941 is just as relevant as ideas published minutes ago. The entirety of human history has become material for the formation of new cultures and ideas, something that traditional cultures struggle to grasp without the internet. Going forward, using classic cartoons such as Tom and Jerry, Looney Tunes, and The Simpsons are now a staple in meme culture, and references to these cartoons can be seen everywhere on the internet. Now let's circle back to how the internet has globalized and shaped memes, being the direct catalyst for the creation of certain new forms of memes. While the deep-fried memes focus on the visual impact, was the text transformed or repurposed?
Yes, it was. In recent decades, multilingual memes have emerged, largely due to cultural interchange facilitated by the internet, as a prevalent and sometimes dominating element in online communication. And this is where code switching comes into play. Internet memes sometimes comically modify idioms by code switching, replacing part of the idiom with a foreign word, and pairing the result with an image related to that inserted word. Now the images serve a narrative representational role, as a group of 5 researchers at Nanjing University puts it in a 2024 semiotic analysis on cross-language internet memes, portraying, quote-unquote, the actions and behaviors of individuals within the depicted scenarios, while the text delivers the specific humor. You can see this in Chinese-English homophonic mixes like 大可不必 from 大可不必, meaning totally unnecessary, shown with a confused duck and a question mark. Chinese-French mixes include 帮不住了 from 绷不住了, meaning can't take it anymore, paired with a French flag and a sweating, grinning emoji. You can also tell that the text becomes multimodal. It takes on the binary duty that carries both semantic and phonetic weight and forces the reader to hear a code switch. Beyond homophonic memes, some rely solely on bilingualism, including 有种你现在来跟我 battle, translating quite literally into if you got the nerve, come and get me, paired with a flexing duck. As you can tell, I adore bilingual ducks. When Chinese people use or say this line, they usually pronounce battle with a Chinese accent, as I did before. This creates a sense of cultural integration and shared cultural identity, introducing authenticity and eliminating the pretentiousness from the pronunciation, also creating a sort of hybrid language that turns into a lived experience. This reflects how global cultures are both adopted and adapted. Since creating and utilizing these cross-language memes is also a collective, democratic, interpretive process, it constructs identity and establishes online in-groups, from which codes are established, including the battle meme mentioned before. Cross-linguistic elements carry a sense of exclusivity, bolstering a collective identity within the online community. The sharing and disseminating of these group creations within these in-groups also shapes individual identities and strengthens relationships among users, fostering a sense of belonging and mutual identification. How do you view this creation of an online in-group?
Well, besides what you said, it signals membership, creating linguistic barriers that might make the meme incomprehensible to some, perhaps marking a sense of superiority. Outsiders may refuse to understand or be pushed away by the memes. Furthermore, the meme might have detrimental effects on language ecology. Once people get used to a viral pattern of speaking, such as inserting English words into local sentences, it detracts from genuine bilingual competence and promotes a meme-induced superficial understanding of the foreign language and even the local language. On a deeper level, these inserted words become commodified, consumable tags that don't engage with the deeper context behind those languages. English, at the same time, becomes culturally dominant and desirable, eroding traditional, more marginalized cultures. It becomes a language of the internet, resulting again in shallow engagement with its cultural context. Bilingualism in turn becomes a performance, and the goal is usually to look bilingual, for effect that does not require fluency.
Indeed, and cross-language memes would require us to preserve cultural integrity and balance global cultural integration against the risk of commodifying culture. This is why I believe awareness on the usage, dispersion, and creation of memes should and can be raised with discourse such as this. Your point on shallow cultural understanding has made me think of another category of memes, brain rot. How do they mirror modern cultural evolution?
They are incredibly flexible, easy to apply, low in quality, devoid of meaning, and large in quantity. Ultimately, they describe the prolonged exposure to a fast-paced online world, such as through short video clips that ensure the user swipes to the next for hours on end without gaining any meaningful stimulation. The result is a constant overstimulation, eventually destroying the brain. COVID-19 seemed to accelerate this type of internet culture. Lockdowns isolated people from in-person interactions. Being chronically online served as an incubator for the development of absurd and nonsensical brain rot, to the point where it evolved into a coping mechanism against uncertainty, boredom, and a sense of the surreal against the pandemic. Brain rot represents a complete shift away from meaning, creating a shared chaotic recognition that emphasizes knowing the meme and not the meme itself, one of the most notable examples being 6-7. Traditionally, mimetic evolution mirrors Darwinian evolution, in which memes mutate slowly as they pass from person to person. But brain rot mutates, goes viral, and is remixed at the speed of light. Its culture is incredibly responsive to fleeting moods and a limitless database where any combination of past human cultural production can be smashed together.
I agree. AI is also involved in creating brain rot. You remember the breakout of Italian brain rot in 2025? Of course, they're all made by generative AI, but originally, AI-generated images and memes were more or less just used to make fun of the bizarre ways a computer would try to recreate reality. These AI-generated videos and images became mass-produced and ultimately made fun of themselves, acknowledging their silliness. Their own absurdity is their punchline. However, this initial cloak of irony seems to have worn off as viewers gradually cared less about the fact that they are made by AI. Consequently, authenticity wears off, and people become desensitized to this infinite amount of meaningless creation of images. Yet it is exactly due to this sense of emptiness on the surface that, in certain cases, such as the Italian brain rot memes, harmful messages slip through unnoticed, messages that can teach children the wrong things without them ever realizing it.
To close off our episode, we might consider how we should view memes in an era of information overload. We must be aware of the forces at play, how and why certain types of memes appeal to us, the algorithms that optimize engagement, the commodification of culture and the usage of certain memes, and the in-groups and out-groups formed. Humor can both connect and separate, educate and mislead. Shall we be casual, mindless consumers or active, knowing participants? How we engage with memes as individuals reflects how we engage with culture. Learn about language ecology, how languages live and die in digital spaces. Treat memes as cultural artifacts that have a life force of their own. Maintain awareness while scrolling on platforms. Learn to recognize synthetic content and stay alert for what ideas it might be spreading. At the end of the day, it is a matter of whether we can evolve with the memes we create with our eyes open.